She posted, "My body, my choice," with a bikini pic while on a girl's trip with her ex. I didn't comment. Just canceled her return flight and changed the locks. She's been stranded at the airport for 4 hours calling me. But I'm at dinner with her best friend. I, 32M, discovered my wife's true nature through a single Instagram post. And in that moment, for years of marriage shattered like glass. It started as an ordinary Tuesday. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. My wife had posted a photo from what she claimed was a girls' weekend in Miami. The image showed her in a barely there bikini, posing provocatively on a yacht deck. The caption read, "My body, my choice, sparkles, living my best life." But it wasn't the revealing outfit that made my blood run cold. It was the reflection in her sunglasses. A man's silhouette, clearly shirtless, taking the photo. A man whose build I recognized immediately. Her ex-boyfriend. The one she claimed meant nothing to her anymore. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling slightly. The comments were already pouring in from thirsty followers, but all I could see was that reflection. The lies began unraveling in my mind like a cheap sweater. The sudden girls' trip planned just 3 days ago. The way she'd been secretive about her phone lately. The distant look in her eyes when we made love last week. I screenshot the photo and zoomed in. There was no mistaking it. Same broad shoulders, same distinctive tattoo on his forearm that I remembered from the photos she used to show me when we first started dating. The photos she claimed she'd deleted. My office felt suffocating. I loosened my tie and walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. 20 floors below, people moved like ants, living their honest lives while my wife was playing house with her ex on a yacht in Miami. I called my lawyer immediately. He'd handled my father's messy divorce years ago, and I'd kept his number just in case. He told me what I already suspected. Infidelity was grounds for divorce in our state, and photo evidence would be valuable. He advised me to gather more proof before making any dramatic moves. But I wasn't interested in playing the long game. I opened my laptop and accessed our shared travel account. Her return flight was tomorrow at 6 p.m. My finger hovered over the cancel button for a full minute before I clicked it. The confirmation email arrived instantly. Flight canceled. No refund due to same-day cancellation policy. Next, I called our locksmith. We'd used him twice before. Once when we first moved in together, and again after we lost our keys during a drunken anniversary dinner. He knew our address, our door type, everything. I told him it was an emergency, that I'd locked myself out and my wife was traveling. He could be there in 2 hours. While I waited, I did something that surprised even me. I called her best friend. She worked at a marketing firm downtown, and we'd always gotten along well. Too well, perhaps. There had always been an undercurrent of attraction between us, carefully buried beneath layers of propriety and loyalty. But propriety was a luxury I could no longer afford. I asked if she was free for drinks after work. She seemed surprised by the invitation, but agreed. There was something in her voice, curiosity mixed with concern. She asked if everything was okay with my wife, and I told her we'd discuss it in person. The locksmith arrived at my house right on schedule. He changed both the front and back door locks, providing me with new keys. I paid him in cash and asked him to keep the service confidential. He nodded knowingly. Apparently, he'd seen this situation before. By evening, I was sitting across from my wife's best friend at an upscale restaurant downtown. She looked stunning in a black dress that hugged her curves perfectly. I'd never allowed myself to notice before, but tonight, I noticed everything. I showed her the Instagram post. Her face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, then something that looked like vindication. She told me she'd suspected something was off. My wife had been acting strange lately, canceling plans and being evasive about her whereabouts. Then she told me something that made my stomach drop. 2 weeks ago, she'd seen my wife having coffee with her ex at a cafe near his apartment. When confronted, my wife had claimed it was just closure, that they were discussing some old belongings he needed to return. We talked for hours. She was intelligent, funny, and refreshingly honest. Everything my wife used to be before she became someone I didn't recognize. As the evening progressed, I found myself genuinely enjoying her company in a way I hadn't enjoyed anyone's in months. Around 10 p.m., my phone started buzzing. My wife was calling from the airport. I declined the call and ordered another bottle of wine. She called again and again. Text messages started flooding in, each one more frantic than the last. She was stranded at Miami International Airport. Her flight had been canceled. She couldn't afford a new ticket on such short notice. She needed help. I showed the messages to her best friend, who read them with a mixture of sympathy and disgust. She told me my wife had made her bed and now had to lie in it. The irony of that particular phrase wasn't lost on either of us. By the time we finished dinner, my wife had called 17 times. Her texts had evolved from confused to angry to desperate. She was threatening to call the police, claiming I'd somehow hacked the airline system. She was demanding I fix this immediately. I walked her best friend to her car. The parking garage was dimly lit, creating an intimate atmosphere that seemed to pull us together. She turned to face me, her eyes searching mine. She told me she'd always thought my wife didn't deserve me, that I was kind, successful, and loyal to a fault. The kiss happened naturally, soft at first, then deeper as 4 years of suppressed attraction finally found its outlet. She tasted like wine and possibility. For the first time in months, I felt truly alive. We went back to her apartment. It was elegant and clean, the complete opposite of the chaos my life had become. We made love with an intensity that surprised us both. It wasn't just physical release, it was emotional liberation. I was reclaiming something my wife had stolen from me without my knowledge. Afterward, as we lay tangled in her sheets, my phone continued its incessant buzzing. My wife had enlisted mutual friends to call me. Her sister had sent a scathing text about abandoning family. Her mother had left a voicemail calling me heartless and cruel. But I felt nothing. The numbness that had settled over me earlier was complete now. This woman beside me, my wife's former best friend, understood what I was going through. She'd watched our marriage deteriorate from the outside, seen the way my wife had slowly checked out emotionally while I desperately tried to hold everything together. Update 1. The next morning brought fresh chaos. My wife had apparently spent the night in the airport, trying to find a flight home. Every airline was booked solid due to a weather system affecting the East Coast. She'd managed to get on a standby list for a flight that evening, but it would cost her 3 times the normal fare. Her texts had taken on a desperate quality. She was promising to explain everything, begging me to unlock the house so she could at least shower and change clothes when she got home. She claimed the Instagram post was taken out of context, that her ex had simply been on the same yacht excursion as her girls' group. I read these messages while eating breakfast in my wife's best friend's kitchen. She was making coffee in my dress shirt from the night before, looking more beautiful than I'd ever allowed myself to notice. She asked if I felt guilty about what we'd done, and I surprised myself by answering honestly. No guilt, only relief. She told me she'd been attracted to me since the day we met 4 years ago at my wedding. She'd watched my wife slowly take me for granted, becoming more selfish and entitled with each passing year. She'd wanted to say something, but respected the boundaries of friendship. Those boundaries no longer existed. I drove home to find my wife's sister waiting on my front porch. She demanded to know what was wrong with me, how I could abandon my wife in a strange city over a harmless photo. I showed her the screenshot with the reflection, pointing out her ex-boyfriend's distinctive tattoo. Her attitude changed immediately. She'd never liked him, had warned my wife against getting involved with him years before we met. She asked if I was certain about what I was seeing, and I assured her I was. The sister left without another word, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. By afternoon, my wife had managed to catch an earlier flight. She would be home by 8 p.m. I used the time to pack her belongings. For years of shared life fit into surprisingly few boxes. Her clothes, her books, her collection of vintage teacups she'd inherited from her grandmother. Each item felt like evidence of a life I'd thought we were building together. I found things that confirmed my suspicions. A burner phone hidden in her jewelry box with texts dating back 3 months. Hotel receipts from cities she'd claimed to visit for work conferences. Credit card statements showing purchases at restaurants I'd never been to, always for 2 people. The betrayal ran deeper than a weekend in Miami. This had been going on for months, maybe longer. I'd been living with a stranger who wore my wife's face and shared my bed while her heart belonged to someone else. Her best friend came over to help me finish packing. We worked in comfortable silence, occasionally sharing looks that communicated everything we couldn't say aloud. She found a photo album filled with pictures of my wife and her ex from years ago, pictures my wife had claimed were destroyed. At 7:30 p.m., we loaded the boxes into my car. Her best friend would store them in her garage temporarily. We were carrying the last box when my wife's Uber pulled into the driveway. Update 2. The confrontation was everything I'd expected and nothing I was prepared for. My wife stepped out of the car looking haggard and furious. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared from crying, and she was still wearing the clothes from her Instagram post under a hastily purchased airport sweatshirt. She saw her best friend first and stopped dead in her tracks. The expression on her face shifted from confusion to understanding to absolute rage in the span of seconds. She demanded to know what was happening, why her key wouldn't work, why her belongings were stacked in boxes on the lawn. I handed her the printed screenshot of her Instagram post with the reflection circled in red marker. She stared at it for a long moment, and I watched the lies forming behind her eyes. She claimed it was a coincidence, that her ex happened to be on the same excursion boat as her group. She said the photo was taken by one of her girlfriends, that the reflection was just another tourist. But then her best friend spoke up. She told my wife she'd seen her with him 2 weeks ago, that the lies needed to stop. She said she could no longer stand by and watch my wife destroy our marriage with her selfishness and deceit. The betrayal hit my wife like a physical blow. She turned on her former best friend with vicious intensity, calling her a manipulative snake who'd always been jealous of our marriage. She accused her of seducing me while she was away, of orchestrating this entire situation to steal her life. She wasn't wrong about the seduction part, but she was wrong about who had initiated it. My wife then turned to me with tears streaming down her face. She admitted that yes, she'd been talking to her ex again. Yes, he'd been on the yacht, but nothing physical had happened between them. She claimed she was just confused, trying to figure out if she'd made the right choice in marrying me. She said the Instagram post was meant to make him jealous, to see if he'd fight for her. The honesty was refreshing, even if it was 4 years too late. I told her I'd already contacted my lawyer, that I'd filed for divorce on grounds of adultery and emotional abandonment. I told her she could stay in a hotel until she found her own apartment, and that we'd divide our assets according to state law. She begged me to reconsider, promising she'd cut all contact with her ex immediately. She said she'd do anything to save our marriage, including couples therapy and complete transparency with her phone and social media accounts. But I was done negotiating with someone who'd already checked out of our relationship months ago. Her best friend and I watched as my wife loaded her boxes into the Uber. She was crying hysterically now, alternating between apologies and accusations. She told her former best friend that she'd never forgive her for this betrayal, that their friendship was over forever. Her best friend replied that their friendship had ended the moment my wife decided to cheat on me. That loyalty was a two-way street, and my wife had abandoned hers long ago. The Uber pulled away, taking my wife to whatever hotel she'd managed to book at the last minute. Her best friend and I stood in my driveway, watching the taillights disappear around the corner. She asked if I regretted what we'd done, if I wished I'd handled things differently. I told her the only thing I regretted was not seeing who my wife really was sooner, that I'd wasted 4 years trying to love someone who was incapable of loving me back. We went inside my house now, and opened a bottle of wine. For the first time in months, the space felt peaceful. The oppressive tension that had been building for so long was finally gone. Update 3. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. My wife had fought it initially, hiring an expensive lawyer and claiming emotional distress. But the evidence was overwhelming. The burner phone, the hotel receipts, the photos, the testimony from witnesses who'd seen her with her ex. She'd moved back in with her ex-boyfriend within 2 weeks of our separation. Their relationship imploded spectacularly 3 months later when she caught him cheating on her with someone else. The irony was so perfect it almost felt scripted. Her former best friend and I had been dating openly for 4 months by then. What started as revenge had evolved into something genuine and beautiful. She understood me in ways my wife never had, supported my ambitions instead of resenting them, and brought joy back into my life. The mutual friends we'd shared were split down the middle. Some called me heartless for moving on so quickly, and with my wife's best friend, no less. Others said they'd seen this coming for years, that my wife had been taking me for granted and deserved what she got. I learned that my wife had been complaining about our marriage to anyone who would listen for over a year. She'd told people I was boring, that I worked too much, that she felt trapped in a life she'd never really wanted. Her best friend had defended me in these conversations, which explained why their friendship had been strained lately. My ex-wife tried to reconcile once after her relationship with her ex collapsed. She showed up at my office on a Tuesday afternoon, looking tired and defeated. She told me she'd made a terrible mistake, that she'd confused excitement with love and security with boredom. She asked if we could try again, promising she was a different person now. I told her I was sure she was different. Heartbreak and consequences had a way of changing people. But I was different too, and the person I'd become had no interest in rebuilding something that had been broken from the foundation up. She asked about her former best friend, if our relationship was serious. I told her we were engaged. She cried then, not for our marriage, but for the friendship she'd destroyed with her choices. She said she missed her former best friend more than she missed me, which somehow felt like the most honest thing she'd ever said. As I write this, I'm planning a wedding with a woman who sees the best in me and brings out the best in me. Someone who chose me not as a backup plan or a safe option, but as her first choice every single day. My ex-wife's Instagram post is still up. My body, my choice. She was right about that part. She made her choice, and I made mine. The difference is, I made mine with complete information and a clear conscience. Sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate schemes or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's simply refusing to accept less than you deserve and walking away from people who don't value what you bring to their lives. Sometimes it's finding someone who does. The woman who destroyed my marriage inadvertently led me to the woman who would restore my faith and love. In the end, I suppose I should thank her for that. But I won't. Some gifts come wrapped in too much pain to acknowledge their value. Instead, I'll focus on building something real with someone who chose me on purpose, not by accident or elimination. Someone who posts pictures because she's proud to be with me, not because she's trying to make someone else jealous. Someone who understands that my body, my choice, includes choosing to be faithful to the person you've promised your heart to.